What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for another college basketball video, and this one is the official bracket predictions by myself, Ryan, and my co-host AJ. We have been anticipating this bracket for 2 years since the last March Madness, but here it is, and we have some very good predictions here for you guys. We'll get it started here in the top left quadrant, where I have Gonzaga obviously winning in their first round game. Then Oklahoma, a very strong team that I think is capable. I thought before was capable of getting to the Sweet 16. They got a hard draw. I have them beating Mizzou, but then losing to Gonzaga. Then we have Creighton, UCSB. I'm going to have Creighton win that game. I just think that they're the better team, and I think they can get some wins in this tournament because of their easy draw. And Virginia and Ohio, my justification for picking Ohio here is that Virginia was playing solid, decent basketball, as they always do, but then COVID hit them. This last week, they had to back out of the ACC tournament, and I just don't think that they're going to be the same team. So give me Creighton over Ohio in that second round matchup. So then in the Sweet 16, give me Gonzaga over Creighton. I just think they're the better team there. Now we get to the bottom of this bracket, and here we have USC versus the winner of the first four game, and I will have USC win that one. I just think they are the far superior team to either of those, whichever it is. Then we have Kansas moving on as well, and then I do have VCU Rams pulling off the upset against Oregon in the first round. I just don't think that Oregon is as good of a team as a 7 seed should be. They've really faltered as of late and are not a consistent team. Then we have Iowa also getting into the round of 32. First real upset or big upset in the second round, we have USC defeating Kansas. Like I said for Virginia, Kansas had to back out of their conference tournament because of COVID-related issues, and they already weren't your typical Kansas team that we're used to seeing in years prior. Yes, they did get a few big wins in the Big 12, and it is a great conference, but that game against UT El Paso really alarmed me last week. So give me USC in a close one there. Then I have Iowa beating VCU. And then in another upset, I don't really like Iowa at this point in the season. Give me USC to win in the Sweet 16 and advance to the Elite Eight. I think Evan Mobley is going to carry them here, and hopefully they have some great three-point shooting, and the free throw woes do not consume them in March Madness here. And then, obviously, I'm going to have them losing to Gonzaga. I think there are some places where Gonzaga can lose in this quadrant and not make it to the Final Four, but in my official bracket, I just don't think that I can bet on them losing a game. AJ, what about your top left quadrant predictions?
So, obviously, I've got Gonzaga over the 16 seed, Oklahoma over Mizzou. Mizzou has fallen off the wagon as of late. So has Oklahoma to an extent. And I don't think either of these teams can pull off the upset against Gonzaga, so I'm going to give Gonzaga the win there. Then I've got a shocker, UCSB over Creighton. Creighton, while getting to the Big East final, did not give great effort against Georgetown. They have a track record of losing to some pretty bad teams, including Marquette in Big East play. So I'm going to give UCSB, a sneaky team here, about 50 in the net rankings of the win here. And then I'm going to give Ohio the win over UVA. They played Illinois close early in the season. They have incredible fight, and they're hot right now. UVA, I just can't trust them off the COVID pause. Moving on to the second round there, I'm going to give Ohio the win over UCSB. I'm only doing this because I see that Ohio has a higher probability of just getting to this game. I'd love it if both of these teams pulled off the upsets, but more likely than not, that's not going to happen. So Ohio has a better chance of beating UVA than UCSB does Creighton, despite I think UCSB being the better team here. On the bottom, I've got USC over Wichita State / Drake. I don't think either of those teams are good at all. Kansas beating Eastern Washington. Kansas has been on the COVID pause, so I'm going to give them the win over USC. I think they're the better team there, but we'll see what happens. Oregon against VCU. I'm going to give Oregon the win. They were hot coming down the stretch. Only lost to Oregon State. Don't think that loss is really a warning sign for them. And then I'm going to give Iowa the win over Grand Canyon. Iowa taking down Oregon in the second round is what I have there. And then Iowa moving on to the Elite Eight, where I have a chalk 1-2 matchup. I'm going to give Gonzaga the win here. And let's move on to the right quadrant. Ryan, what do you have?
In the right quadrant, I see Baylor as a dominant team. I see them winning, obviously, in the first round. Then we have a very good 8-9 matchup. That is a theme in this bracket. We do have some great 8-9 matchups, very entertaining. I'm going to be having UNC beat Wisconsin. I know a lot of people think Wisconsin was underseeded, but I think UNC is just hitting their stride. They play in a lot of close games. I think they can test Baylor in that round of 32 game. I was considering giving North Carolina that win, but I just think Baylor is a bit too strong there. Then we have Villanova at the 5 seed and Winthrop at the 12, and I have the Winthrop Eagles winning that game because I frankly just do not see how Villanova has anything left after Gillespie got out with his injury and then obviously losing in the first round of the Big East tournament to Georgetown. Then we have pretty simple Purdue advancing past North Texas. Then in that round of 32 game, that's where it's going to end for Winthrop with Purdue winning in that game. And then in the Sweet 16, Baylor versus Purdue, I just don't think Purdue has enough here to knock off this Baylor team in the Sweet 16. So give me Baylor with a relatively easy path to the Elite Eight. Now we go to the bottom of that bracket. Texas Tech against Utah State. I think this is going to be a very entertaining game, but I think the 6th seed Red Raiders are going to pull it out. I think they play a lot of close games in the Big 12, so I think they'll be able to pull this one out, a tournament-type game. Then we have the Arkansas Razorbacks against Colgate, and I am really scared for Arkansas here because they might lose first round, but I'm giving them that one against Colgate, but watch out. And then we have Virginia Tech. I'm really liking how Mutz is playing as of late. I think Virginia Tech could get hot in this tournament, so give me them over the Gators. And then, obviously, Ohio State winning against Oral Roberts. So then, a bit of a surprise, I have Virginia Tech beating Ohio State. I know Ohio State may have looked a bit impressive in the Big Ten tournament, and they do have a very good resume, but it's March, anything can happen, and Ohio State just hasn't looked great. I know they can knock off some great teams, but they've also been liable to some pretty gargantuan upsets. I mean, notably losing to Michigan State a couple weeks ago. Then we have Texas Tech against Arkansas, and I really think Arkansas did lose to LSU in the SEC tournament, but before that they had won so many straight games, hadn't lost in the month of February. So give me Arkansas to knock off the Red Raiders. Then that is where Virginia Tech's run is going to end in the Sweet 16 to Arkansas. I think Arkansas is a great team. And then the Elite Eight, I have Arkansas advancing to the Final Four past Baylor. I think this one is going to be a great game, but give me the Razorbacks to continue their run and get to the Final Four. AJ, what about you?
Obviously, I've got the Baylor team winning against Hartford there. In the 8-9 matchup, I'm going to have UNC beating Wisconsin. Both of these teams, I think, could have been seeded a bit better in this tournament, so they present a unique challenge to Baylor in the second round. Wisconsin's been more up and down all year, so give me UNC to win that matchup. Winthrop, I'm also going to have beating Nova. I just can't trust Nova at this point. They're down their two best guards, Moore and Gillespie, and then in the next game, I'm going to have Purdue beating University of North Texas, and then Winthrop in the next game. Baylor-Purdue, I'm going to have Baylor winning. I think they'll right the ship after a rough Big 12 tournament, to say the least. On the bottom, I'm going to have Texas Tech beating Utah State in what should be a great matchup. And as Ryan said, Arkansas against Colgate is a great 3-14 matchup. Arkansas to win there. I've got Arkansas beating Texas Tech in what will be a thrilling matchup. Don't overreact to both of these teams losing in their respective tournaments. They're both very solid and like to play teams close. So this should be a great, thrilling game in that 6-3 matchup for a Sweet 16 spot. Ohio State, I have winning against Oral Roberts, and then Florida winning over a overrated, to say the least, Virginia Tech team that I think they're frauds, but Florida's not much better. They lost to Tennessee twice in the last 2 weeks, so I'm just going to have Ohio State beating the winner, and then I'm going to have Arkansas beating Ohio State. Ohio State's probably playing the better basketball right now, but I'm going to have Arkansas winning that matchup to send them to the Elite Eight, where I have Baylor beating Arkansas to send them to the Final Four. Ryan, what do you have on the bottom?
So in the bottom right quadrant, this one is one of the craziest ones upon the bracket reveal. I'm going to have Illinois obviously advancing past Drexel in the first round. Then we have another great 8-9 matchup. Georgia Tech versus Loyola Chicago. Give me Georgia Tech there, ACC champions. Then Tennessee, pretty self-explanatory, against the hot Oregon State team, but I think Tennessee is the better team at this point. Then we have Oklahoma State, Cade Cunningham, and likely they are a great duo, and I think Oklahoma State is going to have a great run in this tournament. And then, as I said, Oklahoma State then beating Tennessee in the round of 32. Both of these teams are very good, sneaky for their seed line, but give me Oklahoma State to win there and advance to the Sweet 16. Then we have Illinois and Georgia Tech. This could be a trap game for Illinois. I hope they don't lose this one too early. So give me Illinois there. They are the far superior team. And then Illinois versus Oklahoma State. I could have had Oklahoma State winning this one, but I just think Illinois is the deeper team, and I think this one might get into a blowout if Oklahoma State isn't careful or Cade Cunningham doesn't have the game of his life. So now we go to the bottom of the bracket, in which I have SDSU over Syracuse. I know a lot of people are going to be picking Syracuse there, but I like the Aztecs, the way that they've been playing these last couple seasons. Then West Virginia, I have them winning against Moorhead. And then Clemson, Rutgers, give me Rutgers there. I think they've faced a far superior competition all year in the Big Ten. I think that will have them ready for this one. Then Houston obviously advancing. Then we got Houston versus Rutgers. I wanted to give Rutgers this game, but Houston has been very impressive down the stretch. I don't think they're getting enough hype, so give me them to reach the Sweet 16. Then we have West Virginia and SDSU. I'm not super high on West Virginia, but I do recognize that they are the superior team to the Aztecs. And then give me Houston to beat West Virginia in the Sweet 16. Setting us up for a 1-2, bit of a chalk bracket in this bottom right quadrant, but give me Illinois. I think they are the hottest team in the tournament right now. And as long as they don't have a completely terrible performance, I think it is theirs to lose. Give me them to advance to the Final Four. AJ, what about you?
I've got the same matchup in the second round, Illinois against Georgia Tech, for the same reasons. I think Loyola Chicago is a little overseeded here at the 8, but we'll see what happens. That could be a great matchup. Then I've got Oregon State beating Tennessee. I see either Georgetown or Oregon State. One of the two has to win the game because they're, quite frankly, some of the hottest teams in the nation right now. So I think one of the two of them is going to win. So I'm going to have it being Oregon State here. Tennessee is a little more fraudulent than Colorado on the other side, if you look at the bracket. And then I'm going to have Oklahoma State beating Liberty. They're playing great basketball. Oklahoma State. In the battle of OSUs, I'm going to have Oklahoma State beating Oregon State and facing Illinois. That should be a great matchup, but I'm going to give Illinois the win just barely there. On the bottom, SDSU and Syracuse, I'm also going to give SDSU the win for the reasons Ryan said, and then WVU the win against Moorhead State. I'm going to give West Virginia the game against San Diego State. Even though they've lost a couple of games recently, they've all been to good teams. I think they have enough to get by a 6-seed San Diego State and send themselves to the second weekend. Clemson, Rutgers, I think Clemson are frauds because they just haven't shown me anything down the stretch. Their best basketball was played early. And then I'm going to have Houston winning against Cleveland State. Rutgers, I don't even think they're that good of a team, but I think Houston is liable for an upset here in the second round. So give me Rutgers to go to the Sweet 16 and play WVU, where I see them getting routed, and WVU sending themselves to the Elite 8. They'll play Illinois, where I see them eventually ending their journey. I see Illinois going to the Final Four here. Ryan, what do you have in your bottom left bracket?
In my bottom left bracket, I think this one is going to be anarchy, to say the least. We've got Michigan obviously advancing to the second round. And then another great 8-9 matchup where I have LSU taking down St. Bonaventure. I think LSU is very hot right now. Probably should have won that SEC tournament final, but it's okay. So then that sets us up for a great second round matchup, Michigan and LSU, where I have LSU taking down the Wolverines. Michigan, without Livers, I mean, he's really their playmaker for their team, and I don't expect him to be playing. They've been a volatile team as of late. Haven't really shown me anything in these last 2 weeks. I know they were undefeated and hadn't lost for a while there, but that was a few weeks ago, and ever since that Illinois game, this team has been pretty fraudulent, to say the least. So give me Michigan bowing out there in the second round. Then I have Colorado advancing past Georgetown. I thought Georgetown's run was pretty good in the Big East, but I'm not too high on the Big East itself. So Colorado here in the next round. Then we have a very strong FSU team getting to the second round, where I see them also taking down the Buffaloes. So FSU and LSU in the Sweet 16, and I'm going to be taking the Seminoles. They're always at this point in the bracket, and I feel like their coach has done a lot. I feel like they have a really good coach for this type of scenario, so give me FSU to advance to the Elite Eight, and they have a lot of talent and great three-point shooters. On the bottom side of the bracket, I have Michigan State / UCLA. I see Michigan State winning that game against UCLA and then beating BYU. And then Texas, I have them getting to the second round and then beating Michigan State. And then on the bottom, UConn, I have beating Maryland. I'm not really high on either of those teams, but I think Book Night will have a good game. UConn will win there. Then Bama beating Iona and beating UConn later. And then Sweet 16 matchup, Texas and Bama. This one is going to be a great matchup, but I have Alabama winning. They've just been a far more consistent team over the entire season. Then I have FSU and Bama in the Elite Eight. Give me Bama here. I feel like FSU could win that, but Bama has just been a very consistent team all year, and they have a lot of talent. Won the SEC tournament, so give me Alabama as my fourth Final Four team. AJ, what about you?
So I've got that Michigan-LSU matchup, as Ryan said. But the difference I'm going to give here, I'm giving LSU the win, but I think St. Bonaventure would beat Michigan as well for the same reasons. Again, without Livers, Michigan's kind of collapsed down the stretch. They played some great basketball for a time there. We'll see if they can reignite the spark in this tournament. Colorado is a bit of a fraud against these bad teams, but they, quite frankly, got the best 12 seed they could have against Georgetown. They're going to be prepared for a good team like Georgetown as opposed to, say, a UCSB or a non-Power 6 team. So give me Colorado there. And then FSU, I don't really want to pick them to go as far as you see them going here, but I'm going to give them the win over UNC Greensboro, obviously, and then the win over Colorado because I just think Colorado's path is harder past Georgetown and then beyond, even though they are a great free throw shooting team, so they should be able to close out games. Next, I have Florida State beating LSU in a great matchup there. Again, as Ryan said, Florida State always seems to be in this spot, and they won't have to deal with Michigan. So I see them as being an up-and-down team. Obviously, a shaky ACC tournament for them. And then on the bottom, 6 BYU against Michigan State and UCLA. And I'm sorry, BYU. They have no chance in this matchup, whoever it be, Michigan State or UCLA. Texas winning the Battle of Texas here with Abilene Christian, and then Texas beating MSU or UCLA. Texas is really hot right now, winning that Big 12 championship. I'm also going to have Maryland beating UConn in the 10-7 matchup, and then Bama beating Iona in the 2-15. Bama beating Maryland in that next matchup, though Maryland could present a unique challenge to Bama there. And then I'm going to have Texas beating Bama. I think they're a little bit hotter. Both of these teams won their tournaments, but Bama's kind of faded down the stretch. I don't like how they rely on the three-pointer, so give me Texas there, and then I'm going to take Texas over FSU to the Final Four. In the Final Four, what do you have going on, Ryan?
In the first Final Four matchup, this is where I see it ending for Alabama. An impressive run to the Final Four, but I think Gonzaga is very serious this year, and I think they will get to the championship game. In the other Final Four matchup, we have Arkansas versus Illinois, and I think if Arkansas gets hot, this could be a very good game, but give me Illinois. They are just so impressive right now, and in the championship game, by a score of 76-70, give me Illinois to win this game. I think these are the two best teams in college basketball, and it would be a treat if this was the final game. I just think Ayo DeSumo, Coburn, they just have too many good players, great coach team. So give me Illinois to win in my championship game. AJ, what about you?
In the Gonzaga-Texas, I'm going to have Texas winning. And then in the Baylor-Illinois matchup, I'm going to have Baylor winning. I think Baylor will be able to pull it out here. Illinois is obviously the hotter team. And then for Texas, I see them ending Gonzaga here. Gonzaga's had a really easy path to get to this point. Texas has kind of battled through everything. I'm not even going to set up the narrative at this point because obviously, as we've seen in years past, the narrative gets built in those first 4 rounds, and then the Final Four is just riding that same narrative just to see who's going to win the game. Texas-Baylor final, all Big 12. I'm going to have Baylor winning. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave your own tournament predictions in the comments below.